Hello, I'm Elise Vance, the author of the channel Borrowed Lives, and I offer you fascinating stories. Like and subscribe to my channel.
I was reborn back to the dawn before my wedding. The very first decision I made was to swap fiancés with my stepsister. In my previous lifespan, I married Vance Sterling, a mild-mannered, soft-spoken architectural preservationist. He was far too fragile for my razor-sharp ambition, and I grew to despise his passive, indecisive nature. Our marriage burned to ashes within 9 months. Meanwhile, my stepsister, a delicate and soft-spoken pianist, was locked into an arranged union with Kaelen Cross, the ruthless sovereign of Southeast Asia's most formidable maritime empire. She couldn't survive the cutthroat, predatory lifestyle. Systematically tormented and driven to despair by Kaelen's so-called foster sister, Serena, she fell into severe depression and perished in obscurity. So, when time rewound, I didn't hesitate. I would be the one to marry the ruthless tycoon. But I never anticipated that after the vows, the icy, merciless titan would transform so completely. Every night, his stoicism evaporated, replaced by unyielding devotion as he held me close, whispering, "Good girl. I'll tear down the world for you. I promise." In my past existence, I married the quiet artist, and my sister bound herself to the cold corporate predator. Both outcomes ended in complete disaster. Waking up 24 hours before the altar, I initiated the swap. My mother intercepted me on the tarmac just as the private jet's engines began to roar. She gripped my arm, her face pale with fury. "Are you insane, Vivienne? Who authorized you to pull a stunt like this? You had a secure, dignified life set up with a brilliant architect, and you're throwing it away for a dangerous shark." I simply broke free from her grip and boarded the steps, leaving her screaming on the runway as the plane lifted off into the storm. I stared through the glass, making a silent vow. This time, I rule my own destiny. In the original timeline, my stepsister Lyra was destined for Kaelen Cross, while I was pledged to Vance Sterling. We were both destroyed by those choices. Lyra was too fragile for the treacherous political waters surrounding the Cross dynasty, and Serena's calculated malice pushed her over the edge. My fiery temperament utterly shattered Vance's quiet world, leading to a bitter divorce after which I buried myself in corporate warfare. This time, I flipped the chessboard. The moment I woke up in the past, I confronted my sister. "Lyra, listen to me carefully. We are switching grooms. You marry Vance. I'm taking Kaelen." Lyra's eyes widened in sheer horror. "Vivienne, have you lost your mind? Kaelen Cross is a monster. He commands fleets, operates in shadowy legal gray zones, and erases anyone who stands in his way. You don't even know him." "I don't need to love him. I need his absolute power to secure my global logistics firm," I replied coolly, gazing out over the city's skyline. "Vance is patient, soft, and protective. He will give you the peaceful, artistic sanctuary you actually want. Trust me." Tears trickled down Lyra's cheeks. "I can't let you throw yourself into the lion's den for me." "It's not a sacrifice," I said, handing her a pen. "It's a strategic takeover." With Lyra's hesitant consent, I replaced her signature with mine on the legally binding ironclad merger-marriage contract between our families. We kept our parents completely blind to the switch until the very last hour. By the time my mother figured it out at the airbase, my flight was already cleared for takeoff. 90 minutes later, the jet touched down at the private harbor estate. Though slightly dizzy from the flight, my mind was sharp as a diamond. A sleek, matte-black armored sedan was already idling beside the runway. The Cross ancestral estate was even more foreboding than the rumors suggested, a monolithic cliffside fortress overlooking the ocean. The chief butler escorted me into the primary lounge, a space dripping with understated wealth, cold marble, and suffocating tension. Before I could even take in the scenery, a sickeningly high-pitched, mocking voice pierced the room. "Oh dear, what is that tacky smell? Did someone let a middle-class intruder into the main wing?" I turned slowly. Standing near the grand archway were two figures. A woman draped in custom haute couture, looking as fragile as porcelain, and beside her stood a tall, broad-shouldered man radiating lethal composure. My future husband, Kaelen Cross, and his foster sister, Serena. I didn't have a single second to waste on her childish insults. I stood up and walked directly toward Kaelen. Serena was clearly accustomed to people trembling in her presence. Her fake, theatrical smile instantly froze. Without ceremony, I slapped the signed marital agreement onto the obsidian table between us. Kaelen Cross. I am Vivienne Vance, your contracted bride. The paperwork is finalized. If you have no objections, direct me to my quarters. I need a shower and precise quiet. Kaelen's piercing silver eyes shifted slowly from the documents to my face. He remained entirely silent, studying me like an unexpected variable in an equation. Serena looked appalled. No one ever dared address the head of the Cross dynasty with such blunt authority. She immediately clutched his forearm, her voice trembling with delicate hurt. Kaelen, I don't think your new bride likes me. Is she always this aggressive? In the previous life, if she had pulled this delicate victim routine on Lyra, my sister would have spent 20 minutes stammering breathless apologies. But I am not Lyra. And who exactly are you supposed to be? I interrupted, my voice sharp enough to cut glass. You have a remarkably loud mouth for a mere dependent in this household. Serena gasped, her face draining of color. I turned back to Kaelen, tapping my index finger on the obsidian glass. Or is it standard policy within the Cross Empire to let emotional outsiders dictate the household's decorum? Finally, Kaelen moved. With effortless composure, he pulled his arm out of Serena's tight grip, utterly ignoring her shocked expression. A subtle, dangerous smile touched the edge of his lips. Butler, Kaelen commanded, his voice low and resonant. Show the lady of the house to the master suite. As I followed the head servant up the grand spiral staircase, I heard Serena start to sob softly behind us. I smirked to myself. If she couldn't handle a simple verbal boundary, her upcoming weeks were going to be pure torture. The master suite was colossal, a minimalist sanctuary of dark wood, high-tech security panels, and floor-to-ceiling ocean views. I took a scorching hot shower, changed into tailored dark silk robes, and recalibrated my strategy. 3 days later, the high society union reception was hosted on the estate's private cliffside glass terrace. The titan families of corporate finance, shipping, and underground networks sent their highest-ranking representatives. The room was heavy with intrigue. When I stepped into the grand hall holding Kaelen's arm, clad in a sleek, obsidian evening gown with a high slit, a sharp murmur rippled through the elite crowd. She's captivating. An arranged corporate merger, yet they look like apex predators standing together. Right on cue, Serena executed her next dramatic performance. She arrived wearing a pristine, pure white gown, her eyes delicately rimmed in red, looking utterly frail and heartbreakingly tragic. I envy Vivienne so much. She projected softly to a group of influential board members nearby, her voice trembling just enough for the surrounding crowd to hear. With a single contract, she gains complete reign over the Cross enterprise. Unlike me, I will only ever remain under Kaelen's silent protection. The deliberate implication hung heavily in the air. The crowd's whispers instantly shifted. She was subtly declaring that while I held the legal title, she held his heart and history. I glanced sideways at the titan beside me. His face remained a flawless, cold marble mask. Typical, I thought. The man possesses enough power to move markets, but won't speak up against domestic theatrics. Fine. If she wants a theatrical production, I'll produce one. Without warning, I pivoted on my heels, wrapped my arms firmly around Kaelen's neck, pulled him down, and kissed him deeply, right in front of every major power broker in the region. The glass hall went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop on the marble floor. When I slowly pulled back, I shot Serena a cold, triumphant smirk and arched an eyebrow. You're absolutely right. I am the only woman who belongs in this spot. Serena's face turned ghost white. Tears overflowed down her cheeks. And another thing, I added, my tone cutting through the quiet room. At least I don't have to put on a pathetic, helpless act to secure a man's attention. She stood there, completely speechless and utterly humiliated. Desperate to regain control, she turned to Kaelen with trembling lips. Kaelen, tomorrow is the annual memorial for my late father. You'll be escorting me to the private chapel, right? We've kept that tradition together for 5 years. My manicured nails dug lightly into the nape of Kaelen's neck, a quiet, lethal warning. To my sudden irritation, Kaelen frowned slightly, then gave a singular nod. Arrangements are already made for tomorrow. A sharp wave of irritation flared in my chest. I tightened my grip on his collar, shifted my center of gravity, grabbed his forearm, and threw the giant corporate titan clean over my shoulder onto the padded lounge floor. A stunned, deadly silence washed over the glass terrace. The chamber orchestra's lead violinist dropped his bow onto the floor with a loud clatter, and several high-ranking board members froze with their glasses midair. "Vivienne, are you completely insane?" Serena shrieked, her delicate act instantly shattering as she pointed a trembling finger at me. "How dare you lay a hand on Kaelen?" I tilted my head back slightly, a cold, unbothered smirk on my lips. "I just did. What of it?" I knew this was the exact power play Serena had pulled on Lyra in the previous timeline, yanking the groom away under the guise of emotional distress the very day after the union was announced. I wasn't about to let her play that scripted game again. Surprisingly, Kaelen didn't look furious at all. He got to his feet with fluid grace, casually dusting off the sleeve of his tailored suit. "Just a private martial demonstration between husband and wife," Kaelen announced to the stunned audience, his voice smooth and entirely unbothered. Before anyone could react, his hand shot out, wrapping tightly around my wrist. He turned toward the gaping Serena, his tone dropping to a flat, emotionless baseline. "And we will both be accompanying you tomorrow." Serena's eyes widened in sheer horror. "But Kaelen, she isn't family, she's just your corporate contract." "She is my wife and the lady of this empire," Kaelen cut her off sharply. "It is only fitting that she stand beside me to pay formal respects to your father's memory." Serena covered her mouth, let out a choked sob, and fled down the garden path. Kaelen leaned down, his breath brushing against my ear, low and dangerous. "Satisfied? Let us navigate the rest of this evening. I will clarify everything shortly, my little wildcat." "Don't call me wildcat," I hissed, bringing my heel down sharply onto his polished dress shoe. The reception finally concluded. It was our wedding night. The master suite had been absurdly decorated with crimson rose petals, a laughable, desperate attempt by the staff at romantic atmosphere. I sat on the edge of the plush king bed, methodically running a cleaning cloth down the barrel of a custom matte black pistol I had just unstrapped from my thigh holster. The doors clicked open. Kaelen walked in, loosening his silk tie and unbuttoning his collar. He caught sight of the firearm in my hand and slightly raised one dark eyebrow. An unconventional choice of accessory for our wedding night. "I don't enjoy having my time wasted," I said, raising the weapon until the muzzle lined up directly between his eyes. "Kaelen Cross, I detest men who play double games. If you think you can keep a wife for public status while running a side affection with your late mentor's daughter, we can dissolve this agreement tonight. Power brokers are a dime a dozen. I, Vivienne Vance, am not." He didn't flinch. He didn't even pause. Kaelen stepped forward until the cold steel pressed directly against the center of his forehead. "Dissolve it? Not a chance in hell," he murmured. "So you expect to maintain an empire and a mistress?" I sneered, holding my grip steady. "Impressive audacity, Mr. Cross." Kaelen let out a quiet sigh. For the very first time, the icy titan looked slightly weary. He reached up, gently closed his long fingers around the slide of the gun, and lowered it away from his face. He sat down right beside me on the edge of the mattress. "Serena's father was a senior director who took a bullet for me during a dockyard ambush years ago," Kaelen explained, his voice entirely serious. "I gave him my word on his deathbed that I would protect her life and financial security. It is a debt of honor, not affection." He looked directly into my eyes, his silver gaze piercingly direct. "I signed the contract with you. You are my only wife. In the Cross family, there is no divorce. The only exit is a pine box, and I will never tolerate anyone disrespecting my wife. I will maintain absolute distance from her. That is my oath to you." I stared at him, searching for any trace of deception, but found only cold, unflinching honesty. "If you break your word," I said, holstering the weapon beneath my gown, "I'll be the one putting a bullet in you." "Fair terms," Kaelen replied, a rare, faint smile touching his lips. The next second, his hand closed around my waist, pulling me down onto the soft mattress. The cold corporate wall vanished, replaced by an intense, magnetic heat. Now that the parameters are set, his fingers brushed slowly against my collarbone. It's time to seal the agreement. My heart skipped a beat as I looked at his striking face so close to mine. To hell with playing coy. I reached up, looped my arms around his neck, and pulled him into a fiery, demanding kiss. The temperature in the suite skyrocketed. Kaelen's breathing turned heavy and ragged against my neck. "You're mine now, my wife." Just as I opened my mouth to respond, bang, 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 a frantic, violent pounding echoed against the heavy oak doors. "Boss!" "Emergency!" a guard shouted breathlessly from the hallway. "Miss Serena left a signed suicide note. She's vanished from the grounds." Kaelen went rigid instantly. The intense heat between us vanished as if snuffed out by ice. He shot off the bed, his fingers rapidly rebut-toning his dress shirt. "I'm heading down." So much for his grand promises. I grabbed a heavy silk throw pillow and hurled it directly at his back with full force. Are all the security teams in this empire completely incompetent? Does the almighty chairman have to go hunting through the woods himself every time she throws a tantrum? I stood up, eyes blazing. "Kaelen Cross, have you forgotten what night this is? If every woman who writes a tragic farewell note can pull you out of your wedding bed, then congratulations, you don't have a wife, you have a leash." Kaelen froze in place, one hand still resting on his shirt button. Outside the door, the guard's breathless panic abruptly died down. I could practically feel his sheer terror radiating through the heavy oak door. Slowly, Kaelen turned around. His silver eyes were still dark with leftover desire, but the sharp, lethal edge of the Titan had returned. "Vivienne, don't. Don't Vivienne me," I snapped, smoothing down my gown and retrieving my pistol from the covers. "I didn't say leave her to drown. I said use the vast surveillance empire you brag about. Send tactical units. Send medical teams. Ping her cell phone. Check every security node from the harbor to the city gates. Why does the head of the Cross dynasty have to run barefoot every time she writes a dramatic sentence on perfumed paper?" The guard in the hallway seemed to stop breathing entirely. Kaelen's jaw clenched tightly. "Her father sacrificed his life for mine. And you married me tonight." I took a step toward him, pointing a sharp nail at his chest. "I don't need a husband who had zero boundaries before me. I need one who understands which obligation takes priority after he takes his vows." For once in his life, Kaelen Cross had absolutely no clever rebuttal. I marched to the suite door, yanked it open, and found 3 elite guards standing there like terrified schoolboys caught eavesdropping. "Where's the note?" One guard handed over a folded piece of stationery with trembling hands. The paper reeked of overpriced jasmine perfume. Serena's delicate cursive script spanned the page. "If Kaelen cannot come to me tonight, then I finally realize I have no place left in his world. Tell him I forgive him for choosing another woman over our bond." I let out a sharp, cold laugh. Actual suicide notes express finality. Hers reads like a press release designed for maximum emotional guilt. One of the guards choked back a nervous cough. Kaelen snatched the note from my fingers, his eyes sweeping over the lines. The more he read, the colder his expression became. I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe. "Well? What's the directive, Chairman?" Kaelen looked toward the lead guard, his voice dropping into absolute ice. "Track her personal device. Pull all estate feed logs from the past 2 hours. Alert the family physician. And if a single word of this reaches the board, the elders, or the press, you will be answering to me personally." The guard stood at sharp attention. "Understood, boss." Then Kaelen looked directly at me. "My wife comes with me." Better, I thought. Not perfect, but acceptable. 20 minutes later, we located Serena at the Cross Memorial Chapel by the coastal docks. She was sitting on the damp stone steps under a street lamp, wearing a flowing white dress, her hair loose, her eyes artfully red, yet her makeup remained suspiciously flawless. Two house servants hovered anxiously nearby, and a young security guard stood at a calculated angle, holding his smartphone half hidden in his coat pocket. I stepped out of the dark sedan before Kaelen's assistant could even grab the door handle. Serena looked up at the sound of heavy footsteps. The moment her eyes landed on me, her fragile expression cracked. She had clearly expected Kaelen to arrive alone, desperate, and remorseful. Instead, she got me, wearing Kaelen's heavy wool trench coat over my gown, barefoot, with a high-caliber pistol holstered against my thigh. "Kaelen," she whimpered, attempting to stand, swaying dramatically as she reached her hand toward him. Kaelen took a deliberate step backward, standing flush behind my shoulder. Her hand caught only cold air. The nearby servants stared in shock. I offered Serena a razor-sharp smile. "Be careful, Serena. White silk stains terribly when people throw fake fainting spells on wet marble." Her lips trembled violently. I just wanted to disappear. I couldn't bear the isolation." "Then you chose a remarkably well-lit chapel, surrounded by 2 attendants, with a guard filming your good profile from 3 yards away," I countered smoothly. "Top-tier theatrical production." The young guard's face turned paper white. Kaelen's gaze shifted to the guard like a predator locking onto prey. "Hand over the device." The guard hesitated for a fraction of a second before placing the phone into Kaelen's outstretched palm. The screen was actively recording in high definition. Had Kaelen rushed forward to embrace Serena, the footage would have leaked to the press by morning as a tragic romantic scandal. Unfortunately for her, I had hijacked the narrative. Tears of genuine frustration finally spilled down Serena's cheeks. I was terrified. "Tomorrow is my father's memorial. I didn't want to be alone." "Tomorrow is your father's memorial," I reminded her coldly. "Tonight was my wedding night." Serena's eyes flashed with pure hatred before she quickly lowered her head again. Kaelen handed the recording phone to his chief security chief. "Preserve the raw file. Send the full footage and timestamp logs directly to my private server." "Kaelen, you don't actually believe I would fabricate something so tragic, do you?" Serena sobbed, looking up at him with wide, innocent eyes. For the first time in his life, Kaelen looked utterly exhausted by her antics. "I believe you require professional medical intervention." Her face twisted in shock. "Medical intervention?" "You left a written note implying self-harm," Kaelen stated, his voice flat and devoid of warmth. "You will be thoroughly evaluated, treated, and placed under strict observation by clinical professionals until further notice." "But I need you," she cried out. "No," Kaelen replied coldly. "You need help." That single sentence struck harder than a physical blow. The medical transport arrived 15 minutes later. Upon examination, the lead doctor confirmed what I already knew: Serena's vitals were completely stable. No toxins, no physical trauma, no trace of any genuine attempt. Her white dress was immaculate except for a faint smudge on the hem from sitting on the stone steps waiting for her audience. I stood shoulder to shoulder with Kaelen as the doctor delivered his brief. Serena sat wrapped in a blanket in the back of the medical vehicle, looking like a disgraced actress whose stage had been dismantled. "If you are genuinely ill, we will ensure you receive top-tier care," I said, leaning toward the window with a composed smile. "If you are performing, we will review the security tapes with the board." Her eyes met mine. No tears this time, only raw, venomous malice. I smiled wider. Pure hatred was honest. I preferred it over fake innocence. By the time we returned to the estate, the sky was beginning to streak with cold gray light. We walked back into the master suite. The rose petals strewn across the floor looked absurd now, like discarded props from a failed play. Kaelen closed the heavy doors behind us and stood still in the center of the room. I managed that situation poorly. I kicked off my heels and unbuttoned his heavy coat, letting it fall onto a chair. "Which part? The part where you almost ran out the door, or the part where your security network is so weak that a dependent can hijack the chairman's wedding night with scented stationery?" A faint, reluctant twitch touched the corner of his mouth. Then his expression sobered. "Her father pulled me out of a burning vehicle when I was 16. He took 2 bullets intended for my chest. Before he passed, I swore I would shield her. I have no issue with honor or duty, I said calmly. I know, he replied. No, I don't think you do, I countered, tossing Serena's perfume-soaked note into the wastebasket. Duty is not the problem, Kaelen. Confusing duty with blind submission is. He walked toward me slowly, as if approaching a unpinned grenade. I won't make that mistake again. You will, I said, meeting his silver gaze. You've been conditioned for years. She cries, you react. She invokes her father's sacrifice, you yield. She causes a scene, everyone clears a path for her. Decades of habits don't vanish, because I threw a pillow at your back. This time, a genuine, dark smile spread across his face. It was a very persuasive pillow. It was mercy, I corrected sharply. Next time, I'm throwing the iron lamp. Kaelen reached out to take my hand, then paused an inch away, waiting for my permission. The subtle show of restraint didn't escape me. Then instruct me faster, wife. I stared at his hand for a moment, then laced my fingers through his. You learn fast. I don't train powerful men for free. What is your fee? Absolute loyalty. He let out a low, gravelly laugh. A dangerous requirement, only for weak men to fear. His fingers tightened around mine, and the magnetic heat returned between us, quieter this time, steadier, but infinitely more lethal because it was built on mutual understanding. He lifted my hand and pressed his lips firmly to my knuckles. My little wildcat. I promptly kicked his shin with my bare foot. Try again. His silver eyes filled with dark warmth. My wife. Much better. Serena didn't accept her defeat quietly. By noon the next day, orchestrated rumors began slithering through the high society channels and corporate wings. Vivienne Vance assaulted the chairman on their wedding night. Vivienne stole her sister's place out of blind greed. Vivienne is emotionally unstable and violent. Vivienne publicly humiliated a grieving orphan on the eve of her father's memorial. I sat in the sunlit dining hall casually spreading jam over toast while the head butler read off the morning intelligence reports. Kaelen sat across from me, sipping dark coffee, watching me with an expression that bordered dangerously on fascination. In my past life, she destroyed my sister with silent poison, I remarked casually. This time, I brought a louder weapon. The butler's hand froze mid-page. Kaelen set his cup down, his eyes narrowing slightly. Past life. I took a bite of my toast. A figure of speech, obviously. He clearly didn't believe me. Good. A powerful husband shouldn't be too easy to satisfy. That afternoon, I called Lyra. She picked up on the very first ring. Vivienne? Are you all right? Her voice trembled through the speaker, frantic with panic. Mother said you hijacked a flight to the Northern Territory and forced Kaelen Cross into a contract. She's hysterical. I'm alive, officially married, and slightly sleep-deprived, I replied calmly, leaning back against the leather lounge. Vivienne. The heavy weight of guilt in her voice made me sit up straight. I should have been the one to go. You sacrificed your peace for. Don't start with that nonsense, I cut her off sharply. Lyra, listen to me carefully. I didn't switch our places so you could carry a burden of guilt. I did it so you could actually live. Silence stretched across the line, followed by a soft, shaky intake of breath. Vance is remarkably gentle, Vivienne. After the ceremony, he didn't even ask about the family drama. He just brought me warm chamomile tea and asked if the noise was overwhelming me. A faint smile touched my lips. That sounded exactly like Vance Sterling. In my past lifespan, his soft, patient nature had driven my hot-tempered personality insane until I wanted to burn the house down. But for Lyra, his gentle soul was a sanctuary. Good, I said softly. He's a good man, Lyra. I think I can actually breathe around him, she whispered. The tight knot of anxiety in my chest finally loosened. Then breathe. Before she could respond, Vance's quiet, cultured voice echoed from the background. Is that Vivienne? Please inform her that the security analytics firm she recommended has already integrated with my firm's infrastructure. Put me on speaker, I instructed. A second later, Vance's voice came through clearly. Vivienne. Congratulations. I suppose. You suppose? I arched an eyebrow. I am still calculating whether to send a celebratory gift or dispatch an extraction team to the Cross estate, Vance replied with a quiet, dry humor. Send expensive wine instead, I laughed. Noted, Vance replied. His tone shifted, becoming noticeably firmer. I saw the press leaks this morning. Someone is attempting to spin a narrative that Lyra was discarded and that you seized the Cross Alliance for raw political leverage. I heard Lyra's breath hitch in the background. Vance continued, his voice calm as a hidden blade. Gentle does not equate to helpless, Vivienne. I don't need a weapon to dismantle a smear campaign against my wife. I like him much better in this life, I thought to myself. Take care of my sister, Vance, I said seriously. With my life, he answered without hesitation. After I ended the call, Kaelen shifted away from the doorframe where he had been quietly observing. Vance Sterling possesses significantly more backbone than I anticipated. Because you assumed mild-mannered meant spineless, I said, eyeing him up and down. And you? I assumed the same, Kaelen admitted, stepping closer. You truly orchestrated a perfect match for her. I know. The real storm hit that evening when Mother called, practically screaming into the receiver. Vivienne Vance. Have you completely lost your mind? Her voice shrieked. The elite circles are buzzing. They're saying Kaelen Cross is a tyrant, that his foster sister nearly died of heartbreak because of your arrogance, and that Lyra is weeping in some architect's house because you stole her rightful status. I rubbed my temples. Are you finished? Do not use that dismissive tone with me, she barked. Mother, did Serena contact you directly? The sudden silence on the line was answer enough. She sent a private note out of genuine concern for the family reputation. Of course she did, I snapped. She sent it because she is a calculated viper. Vivienne. I didn't ask for your approval, Mother. My voice dropped into cold steel. I acted so we wouldn't be burying Lyra in a cemetery 2 years from now. The line went dead quiet. I hadn't intended to let that slip, but the raw truth hung heavily between us. What does that mean? Mother asked, her voice suddenly small and trembling. It means Lyra would never have survived the shark tank of this estate, I said plainly. I will. Now be smart enough not to play into Serena's hands. I hung up before she could utter another word. 2 days later, Serena attempted her next chess move against Lyra. She dispatched an anonymous, encrypted message directly to my sister's tablet. Poor Lyra. Your ruthless sister stole the empire that was promised to you out of sheer greed. Vance may seem quiet now, but passive men never love passionately. Kaelen's world is dangerous, but at least he fiercely protects what belongs to him. Lyra immediately forwarded me the screenshot with a single caption. I know she is lying, but it still stings. Before I could even draft a response, Vance's official corporate handle replied directly to the group thread Serena had used. Miss Serena, my wife does not require protection from peace. She requires protection from malicious actors who disguise poison as concern. You are officially blocked from our private networks. Further attempts at contact will result in immediate legal injunctions. Shortly after, Vance messaged me privately. I have secured Lyra's devices. If she finds another avenue, my legal team will file harassment charges. I stared at the screen, genuinely impressed. The quiet architect was proving to be a formidable ally. Kaelen read the log over my shoulder, his eyes narrowing slightly. Should I be envious of Vance Sterling? He appears remarkably efficient. He is married to my sister, I reminded him coolly. Kaelen's silver eyes dipped down to my lips. I am well aware. I shoved his face away with 2 fingers. Focus on your own house. Kaelen caught my wrist, pressed a lingering kiss to the inside of my palm, and released it before I could react. Yes, wife. The following week, I began a ruthless purge of the Cross estate. Not with arguments, but with cold, systematic authority. A head guard who had been feeding Serena daily updates on Kaelen's schedule was stripped of his security clearance and removed before noon. A senior housekeeper who spread malicious rumors in the East Wing was escorted off the premises by nightfall. 2 personal drivers who prioritized Serena's calls over the household butler were permanently demoted to the cargo docks. In the central courtyard, one young guard attempted to protest his termination. Miss Serena has been a staple of this dynasty for years. You have no right. I stood on the marble steps, looking down at the gathered staff. If your loyalty lies with a guest, hand in your uniform and go serve her. If you wish to remain in this house, remember who holds the title of Lady Cross. No one dared to utter a single word. At the top of the grand balcony, Kaelen stood with his arms crossed, silently watching the entire display. He didn't intervene once. The chief butler stepped forward and bowed deeply. Understood, Lady Cross. Serena caught wind of the purge by sunset. Her messages to Kaelen became increasingly frantic and erratic. Kaelen, Vivienne is systematically firing everyone who ever showed me kindness. Kaelen, Father would be rolling in his grave if he saw how I'm being humiliated. Kaelen, I'm losing everything. Kaelen brought the glowing tablet over to me in the study. Answer her. I arched an eyebrow at him. Me? She's your persistent ghost. Exorcise her yourself. A subtle, dark twitch of amusement touched his lips. He took the device back and typed a single, decisive sentence. Serena, my wife's absolute authority within this household is not subject to debate or appeal. He hit send. Driven into a corner, Serena finally arranged her final spectacle at her late father's formal memorial gala. Every board member, shareholder, and elder of the Cross dynasty attended. Allied syndicate bosses, shipping moguls, and high society elite filled the Obsidian Memorial Hall, draped in black silk and diamonds. Serena entered the grand hall wearing pure white. Of course she did. Under the warm glow of the chandeliers surrounding her father's massive oil portrait, she looked frail, tragic, and heartbreakingly innocent. Her voice trembled with practiced emotion as she addressed the room, speaking eloquently of historic loyalty, blood sacrifices, and bonds forged before corporate contracts. The atmosphere softened. The older board members were visibly moved. She was good at her craft, I had to give her that. I never sought to stand between a husband and his chosen bride, Serena said softly, tears pooling in her wide eyes. I only hoped that the man my father died to protect would not completely cast aside the daughter left behind. A low murmur swept through the room. An elder board member sitting near the front turned his head toward Kaelen. The late director's supreme sacrifice must never be forgotten, Chairman. There it was. The heavy, suffocating weight of emotional blackmail. Kaelen's face remained a completely unreadable stone mask. I stood up. The murmurs instantly died down. The hall fell dead silent. Her father asked Kaelen to protect her life and financial security, I said, my voice carrying effortlessly across the silent room. He did not ask Kaelen to become a proxy husband whom she could summon whenever she requires attention. A collective sharp intake of breath echoed through the crowd. Serena's tears overflowed right on cue. Vivienne, how can you speak with such callous cruelty at my father's memorial? With flawless timing, I replied coolly. I stepped away from the table and walked toward the center of the hall. You speak so passionately about loyalty, Serena. Let us examine yours. I lifted my hand and signaled the tech operative at the back. The massive digital display behind her father's portrait instantly flickered to life. A text message log appeared in sharp, crystal clear resolution. She's upstairs with him now. Wait 10 minutes, then bring the signed note. Serena's face drained of every drop of color. Another file popped up, her GPS location logs, sent to 2 household servants hours before her supposed disappearance. Then a high-definition photo angle map of the chapel steps. Then a bank transfer receipt to the young guard instructed to film the scene. The room began to buzz with shocked, angry whispers. I turned back to the board of elders. On my wedding night, she drafted a suicide note, prearranged her rescue location, hired an audience, and positioned a cameraman at the precise angle to catch Kaelen holding her for a press leak. Serena backed away, shaking her head frantically. No, that's false. I was grieving. Grief does not require a production crew and lighting plans, I shot back. A low, vicious chuckle rippled through the gathered elite. I raised my finger again and another set of documents materialized on the screen. Messages to staff prying into our private schedules, messages to my mother claiming I was in physical danger, malicious notes to Lyra telling her I was a power-hungry thief, and explicit texts calling me vulgar, unhinged, and unfit to be Lady Cross. Then the final, damning message popped up in huge text. Lyra would have broken within a month. Vivienne is louder, but aggressive women can easily be broken with public shame. Serena stumbled backward, her heel catching on her gown. Those are taken out of context. Then by all means, Serena, enlighten the room with the proper context. Her mouth opened, but not a single sound came out. Desperate, she turned toward Kaelen, tears streaming down her face. Kaelen, say something. Protect me. Kaelen stepped forward into the spotlight. He didn't touch her. He didn't raise his voice. His silver eyes were as cold as absolute zero. I promised your father protection, Kaelen stated, his voice echoing off the high ceilings. Not my bed, not my surname, and never my wife's place. Serena looked as if the earth had opened up beneath her feet. Kaelen turned to face the entire hall, his stance immaculate and imposing. The Cross dynasty has only one lady, Vivienne Vance. My wife. The heavy silence broke like shattered crystal. One senior elder slowly bowed his head, then another, then the butler, the security chiefs, and the corporate representatives, one by one. The entire room yielded. A room that had spent years treating Serena like an untouchable princess shifted entirely toward me. Serena saw her empire crumble in real time. You can't do this, her voice cracked into a desperate shriek. I was here first. I knew him before you ever existed. No corporate paper should override our history. There it was, ugly, desperate, and exposed for every high-ranking member to hear. I took a step closer to her. You wanted to be treated like a daughter of this dynasty? Then behave like one. Daughters do not attempt to infiltrate a married man's bedroom and call it grief. Her hand flew up in a blind rage, aimed straight for my face. Before her palm could even come close, Kaelen's hand clamped down around her wrist like a steel vice. Enough. He released her as if touching something toxic. Your access to all Cross properties is revoked effective immediately. The servants and guards who assisted your scheme are terminated and will face formal corporate investigation. Your father's memorial foundation will be placed under strict third-party audit. You will never contact my wife, her sister, or any member of her family again. You can't exile me, she sobbed wildly. Kaelen looked down at her with unyielding disgust. Watch me. Security guards moved in instantly. This time, no one offered a hand. No elder spoke in her defense. Serena had built her entire status on borrowed debt, and once Kaelen reclaimed that debt, she had nothing left. She was dragged out of the hall in her stained white dress, screaming hysterically under her father's portrait. After the gala, Mother arrived at the estate alongside Lyra and Vance. She looked significantly older, her arrogant posture completely humbled. Lyra stepped out of the vehicle wearing an elegant cream dress, her arm comfortably tucked into Vance's. She looked radiant, peaceful, and truly alive. Mother looked from Lyra to me, then at Kaelen standing firmly by my side. I was wrong, she whispered softly. I crossed my arms. That was surprisingly painless to hear. Tears trickled down her face. I was so blind, Vivienne. I didn't see how terrified Lyra was, and I didn't see that you needed to forge your own path. My expression softened slightly. I never needed your approval, Mother. I just needed you to see why I did it. Lyra rushed forward and wrapped her arms around me in a hug, so tight it nearly knocked the breath out of me. You won, Vivienne. You actually won. Of course I did, I smiled, hugging her back. Vance stepped up beside Kaelen, offering a polite nod. You handled the media fallout impeccably, Chairman. Vance adjusted his glasses smoothly. I simply dislike manipulative actors disrupting my family's peace. Agreed, Kaelen replied, a rare look of mutual respect passing between them. Kaelen's arm slid around my waist, pulling me close. I am learning quickly how to be an proper husband. I glanced up at him. Don't ruin the moment. He leaned down and kissed my temple anyway. Within a month, Serena's foundation accounts were frozen due to severe financial irregularities. The treacherous guards vanished from the region. High society doors snapped shut in her face, invitations evaporated. The fragile, innocent act that had fooled elite circles for years became a running joke. One night, Kaelen led me into his private vault room. On the central desk sat a heavy lacquer box containing the Cross family crest seal and the master keycard to every primary asset. Is this a bribe or a surrender? I asked, looking up at him. Neither, Kaelen murmured, stepping up behind me and wrapping his arms securely around my waist. I didn't bring you here to decorate a throne. I brought you here because you are the only woman powerful enough to rule beside me. I picked up the heavy gold seal. Good. Because I don't do decorative. He turned me around to face him, his silver eyes dark with absolute devotion. He leaned down, pressing his lips against mine in a deep, fierce kiss that sealed our bond forever. In my past lifespan, my sister was destroyed by a world that confused cruelty with strength, and I wasted my fire on a man too soft for my spirit. This time, Lyra found peace. Serena found exile. Kaelen found his true match. And I got exactly what I came back for. Not a cage, not a fairy tale, but an empire that finally learned my name.